The adaptation of Junji Ito's magnum opus, Uzumaki Spiral into Horror, has dropped another banger episode that will leave you spiraling indefinitely. Not a moment in the second episode feels flat, simply because there's just so much insanity happening to the residents of Kurouzu Cho, as the curse of the spiral is spreading rapidly. In the latest episode, the curse mostly targets the teenagers of the town, and the unsettling black and white visuals of bodies intertwining, hair twisting, and spirals turning people into snails will really make your skin crawl. So far, it seems like Uzumaki Spiral into Horror is very clearly not for the faint of heart. With that being said, let's discuss how this curse has been slowly engulfing everyone living in Kurouzu Cho. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. The doomed lovers of Kurouzu Cho. Right at the beginning of the episode, we meet two high school students, Kazunori and Yoriko, who are caught in a difficult situation. Their parents are deeply at odds and have forbidden them from being together, so they hide in a dilapidated shed in order to try and stop feeling the weight of their parents' conflict. As they sit there, holding hands, they notice two snakes with their bodies intertwined, slowly crawling out from a crack in the wall. At first, they get super scared, but once Kazunori takes a closer look, he mentions it was how snakes mated to become one. Once the snakes descended into the black hole of the floor, the couple simply ignored it without giving a thought to the fact that coiled up snakes were an eerie foreshadowing of what is to come. Things only escalate when Yoriko's parents catch Kazunori near their daughter and beat him to the ground before dragging her away. Luckily, Kirie arrives just in time to stop them. Afterward, Kazunori, who is clearly frustrated with his helpless situation, calls both sets of parents twisted and shares that he and Yoriko are thinking of running away from the strange, oppressive environment of Kurouzu Cho so they can be together. Apparently, Kazunori's family moved into an old abandoned row house of the town, which everyone called the poorhouse. Yoriko's family is his neighbor in the same property, and even then they never saw eye to eye, as the property twisted their minds into knots and made it impossible for them to stop the situation from spiraling out of control. In the final part of the episode, when the two teens try to make their escape, their parents finally catch up to them. With the help of Kirie and Shuichi, they manage to reach the beach. However, with no clear way to truly break free, and their parents finally catching up to them, Kazunori decides he does not want to be separated from his lover again, so he begins to twist and coil his body, telling Yoriko to do the same, like the way the snakes coiled themselves together in the beginning of the episode. Yoriko and Kazunori twist their bodies into a long rope and coil around one another, finally becoming one. As their families, Shuichi and Kirie, watch this entire scene in horror, they stand up like a long snake with their heads stuck together at the top and their feet knotted at the end, and slowly crawl toward the sea, disappearing into the water to make a disturbing and surreal escape from their reality. Now, what really stands out about this episode is how much it focuses on the high schoolers. When you're a teenager, everything feels so urgent and intense, and the episode captures that perfectly. There's this constant tension running through it, no matter which character is in the spotlight. It also takes the typical struggles teens face and cranks them up to the extreme. So when things take a dark, surreal turn, it almost feels inevitable. That sense of unease wouldn't hit as hard if the adults were more involved, because the episode really thrives on that raw teenage emotion. The real heart of episode 2 is the foreshadowing. Right from the first shot of the twisted snakes, you can tell what's coming for Kazunori and Yoriko, but the ending still hits hard. You find yourself rooting for these two kids who just want to be happy together, but at every turn, something gets in their way. Even if it feels like they might finally get their happy ending, things only get more twisted, literally, and their love story ends up being heartbreaking in more ways than one, leaving you feeling unsettled and sad for them. The horror of people turning into snails. In the first episode, we met Katayama, a fat guy who's the subject for all bullies in school, simply because he's a slowpoke. Last time we saw him, Katayama had already started showing signs of the spiral curse, with swirls forming on his back. In the last episode, Kirie notices the empty chair in front of her, where her friend Azami Kurotani would sit. We already know that Azami was the second person in the show to be literally consumed by the curse, but nobody in town knows that, so naturally the police are looking for her. This is when Katayama interrupts the class and apologizes to the teacher for being late, only this time his back has swollen up like a snail shell and is hurting him. Now the students see the actual horror in the next class, as Katayama crawls up the window of the school building, giving the students a full view of his body, which has literally transformed into a snail. As he looks inside the classroom, Katayama's eyes literally pop out of his sockets and turn into the antennae-like tentacles that we see in a snail's head. The homeroom teacher, Yokota-sensei, then places him inside a cage outside the school where he ate weeds from the chicken coop, and brought his parents over the next day so they could take Katayama home. But his parents refused to believe that their son had turned into a snail, and leave the place thinking that their teacher is just playing a sick joke on them. But the situation takes a stranger turn, when Sumura, the boy who used to bully Katayama, also started becoming a slowpoke, gradually turning into a snail after coming into contact with him, and being infected with the curse. Later, another human-like snail crawls up the school building, and at first, people mistake him to be Katayama, but soon they realize the snail's face looks like Tsumura. When he's placed inside the cage with Katayama, things turn much more bizarre, as the two snails eventually start mating and laying eggs. Now, snails are hermaphrodites, which means they're neither male nor female, and if these eggs manage to hatch, it will actually send the town into a state of panic. On top of that, both Katayama and Tsumura were missing ever since they laid eggs, so in a desperate attempt to stop the curse from spreading, their homeroom teacher, Yokota-sensei, took matters into his own hands and stomped on the eggs to destroy them. But the next day, when Yokota-sensei walked into class, we see he too has now transformed into a snail, with his entire body looking like it's been covered in the shells of the egg he destroyed. So, bullying is a pretty common theme in manga, especially in Junji Ito's work. But what makes it different here is how Ito punishes the bully in a Lovecraftian style. From the start, Katayama is the kid everyone picks on, and Tsumura, the class bully, always mocks him, even going so far as to call him Sluggo. But Tsumura gets his well-deserved karma served to him very soon. The chaos that follows is pretty gross, and I don't think I'll ever be able to look at a snail the same way again. A popularity contest gone wrong. In the first episode, we saw how Shuichi's mother was driven insane to a point that she had to be committed to a mental asylum. Later, when Kirie visits Shuichi's mother, Shuichi points out that Kirie's hair has grown a bit too long, and that she might need a haircut soon, which leaves her wondering how her hair grew so long so fast. But on the next day at school, Kirie gets a shock when her hair begins twisting into a spiral, forming locked curls at the end. This is when one of her classmates, Kyoko, tries to help her by tying it up in a braid, but it doesn't hold for long, as Kirie's hair unravels during class. To get a better hold on the situation, Kirie decides to visit a hair salon to deal with it, but her hair actually attacks the barber trying to cut it, and even goes on to strangle her. As time goes on, her hair grows to an impossible length, worrying her parents, who decide to take her to the hospital. But once again, Kirie's hair retaliates by strangling Kirie's own neck. It's her little brother Mitsuo who figures out that her hair is strangling her only because it's angry at her for trying to cut it. When everyone around her calms down from trying to take her to the hospital, Kirie's hair finally leaves her alone. With no other choice left, Kirie continues to go to school with her hair rapidly growing longer in spirals, drawing attention from everyone in school. Now, Kyoko, being the popular girl at school, grows inherently jealous of all the attention being on Kirie, and decides to outshine her by showing up with a similar spiral hairstyle the next day. In a jealous frenzy, Kyoko even declares herself as the most popular and attention-seeking girl in school for having the most unique hair. As the entire school gathers around them, Kyoko challenges Kirie to a duel, but Kirie, being already exhausted with the weight of her hair, is not even interested in competing with Kyoko. Believing that only one girl can become the center of all attention, Kyoko then uses her hair to strangle Kirie, whose hair also responds by wrapping itself around Kyoko. Soon the spirals grow bigger, as their hair knots begin fighting one another. Luckily, Shuichi arrives just in time to cut Kirie's hair, but the hair only grows longer around him and wraps him into a cocoon. Shuichi then uses his scissors to cut Kirie's hair right from the roots, finally freeing her from the spirals and returning her to normal. Kyoko, however, did not get so lucky, as her hair only kept growing, making her even more tired. Even then, her hunger for attention keeps rising, driving her insane by forcing her to wrap her hair around an electric pole with spirals protruding from its edges. As the hair keeps growing longer into spirals, it eventually ends up draining the life out of Kyoko. Kirie's stalker spirals to his end. So before the entire fiasco with the doomed lovers even began, we saw how Kirie was getting stalked by Mitsuru Yamaguchi, the boy who claimed to be in love with her, even if she was seeing somebody else. Mitsuru had already been pretty aggressive about how he was hell-bent on going after Kirie, until she agreed to become his girlfriend. Basically, we have a classic case of a boy who cannot take no for an answer, and does not understand the basic foundation of consent. Later, when Kirie's hair reached an unbelievable level of growth, and everyone, including Shuichi, began avoiding her because of the spirals, Mitsuru stopped her in the middle of the road to show the gift he had gotten for her as a token of his love. Kirie yet again rejected him and said that she already had a boyfriend, but Mitsuru insisted that she at least open her gift. Now Kirie was firm on her ground and even claimed that she would never respond to any of his advances. Naturally, Mitsuru gets pretty sad at another rejection being thrown in his face, and even begins to question Kirie on what he could do to prove his love to her. Before she could even say anything, Mitsuru comes up with a quick solution and jumps onto the middle of the road, claiming that he would be able to stop stop a car with the power of his love for Kirie. Unfortunately, the car struggles to hit the brake on time, causing Mitsuru to get squished in the front tires of the car. Kirie watches the horror before her eyes as she finds Mitsuru's body wrapped into one of the wheels, almost like he was trying to spiral around it. As his body lies stuck, lifeless and bloody, the gift box in his hand, which is unnaturally in a perfect state, pops open to reveal a clown springing out. Is the town being infected by the lighthouse? By the end of episode 2, the condition of Kurouzu Cho has visibly deteriorated as the people in town are now walking in brisk circles for hours, while constantly complaining about not being able to reach their destination on time. This is happening on the road, at the station, almost everywhere Kirie walks through. She can see the bizarre scene of people walking in circles. Apparently, the black lighthouse in Kurouzu Cho, which had been abandoned and lightless for years, mysteriously began emitting light every evening at dusk, right after Shuichi's father passed away in the horrific manner of churning his entire body into a spiral. The next day, when Kirie saw people gathered near the lighthouse, she saw a ship that had mysteriously run aground last night. There were even rumors that even after the ship turned over, the 3 crewmen on it were walking in circles on the deck. And mind you, the ship was sailing when the sea was calm and the lighthouse was working. Only 1 crewman survived, but the rest all drowned. Even the 5 people who went to check the lighthouse never came back. While Kirie tries to overhear more of the discussion, her brother Mitsuo and some of his classmates got inherently curious about the lighthouse and decided to check it out. As Kirie ran after the boys to stop them, Mitsuo and his friends climbed the lighthouse winding spiral staircase, slowly beginning to fall into the spiral curse. The spiral staircase felt unending, and when Kirie reached the top, she stumbled upon some dead bodies and found her brother already there. Realizing the danger of the spiraling bulb that heats up to emit the light, she warned her brother and his friends to run before the sun went down and the lighthouse lit up. As they rushed down the stairs, the sun started to set and the lighthouse came to life. At the end of the episode, we see one of the boys tripped and fell on the stairs, and despite Kirie's attempts to help him, the heat catches up to them as the episode ends with them being caught in the blinding light of the lighthouse. The overlapping storylines in Uzumaki can really make you lose track of things because there's just so much happening all at once. Dare I say it sends you spiraling? But that spiraling works perfectly for the show, cranking up the tension and drama as the 23 minutes unfold. Episode 2 of Uzumaki, Spiral into Horror is a fantastic follow-up to an already stunning premiere. From lovers getting twisted together and bullies turning into snails, to hair taking on a life of its own. This episode left me feeling dizzy in the best way possible. But for me, the last few seconds of Uzumaki's episode 2 were the scariest, with Mitsuru's stitched up body suddenly popping out of his grave. This end credit scene means that the next episode will center on Mitsuru's story. What do you guys think will happen in the next episode? Let us know about your thoughts and theories in the comment box below. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone!